Hello and welcome to this episode of Catching the Octopus podcast. Oh, can't speak today. Today's topic is going to be on forgiveness, and I'm not going to just talk about forgiveness of others, but also forgiveness of ourselves, because that's probably one of the harder things to do. But in fairness, both of them can be really difficult because sometimes when we look at forgiveness, we can misunderstand what it's actually doing. And we can think, well, if I forgive this person, then I'm letting them off the hook, right? So in my experience through life, I was actually raised, and everyone around me was kind of the mentality that if someone does you wrong, you pay them back. Right. And so I took on that philosophy as well for a lot of my life. And it wasn't nice. I wasn't a nice person. Now, if someone did do something wrong by me, though, I made them regret it, right? I made them see and believe that that wasn't the right thing to do, that they shouldn't have done that to me at all. And the retaliation was what I thought was the consequences for what someone did. And I didn't understand energy. I didn't understand spirituality as much. And so that was my go-to. That's just what I focused on. But over time, I've learned a lot. My life has taught me lots of lessons. And as I've embraced more of that energy aspect and psychology aspect, I've actually realized that that isn't the way to go, right? So I would put myself as I am their karma, which really then all I'm doing is instigating more bad things for me. So if they've already done something wrong by me, I need to look at that and go, well, okay, instead of going, right, you've done something wrong by me, I'm going to make you regret that. I need to sit in that a little bit more and go, okay, why did I attract that to me? What's happening with my vibration, my frequency, my behaviors, my emotions? Like, what is attracting that to me? Now, this isn't to take blame for it, because it wasn't your fault in a lot of circumstances. But it is looking at what can I do differently moving forward so I'm not in this position again. Now, sometimes it can be really obvious. Sometimes it might just be karma coming back to you, right? Or sometimes it might actually be really beneficial for you, even if you can't see it at the time. So it might not be about how did I attract this and what's going on. It might be, oh, that actual situation has now set me up because it taught me this about people, or it then made me that door closed and this one opened, whatever it might be. But the thing is, instead of looking at those people and thinking, well, if I forgive them, I'm letting them off the hook, right? Or if I forgive them, it means what they did was okay. And it definitely wasn't okay. I'm not happy with it and it wasn't great. That means that sometimes you can be carrying something for years and they're not even thinking about you, right? They're not even giving you a second thought, but they're still in your energy body. And so forgiveness really is about releasing yourself from any emotional attachment to anyone that's done you wrong. It's not about excusing behavior. And so from my perspective in the past, instead of releasing that emotional attachment, I would actually double down and engage back and send, negative energy back to them. Whereas now I've realized that if someone does me wrong, like I may have, if I go really deep on the spiritual element, may have contracted to them to give them an opportunity to learn themselves, or they may have contracted to me, or it may be a karmic element, or I may not have listened to intuition, or there's so many different reasons why things could have happened in that way. And once the event has happened and it's done, I have two choices, right? I can choose to carry that around. I can choose to maintain that emotional connection with them, because while I'm thinking about them, while I'm sending them any kind of bad thoughts, while I'm engaging with anything around that solar plexus area, that's actually creating energetic cords and contacts with them. Or I can make a decision to go, you know what? You now don't get access to me. That means you don't get access to me physically, emotionally, psychologically, or energetically. And I'm just going to create this forgiveness element for me, not for you. And that's like the key. That's the key of the forgiveness. And there's Sometimes there's attachments of, but I was hurt by them. And if I hold on to this and I can make them feel pain, then I'm in control or I have power from that. And although that is short lived, it's not actually going to give you power at all. True power doesn't come from how much you can hurt someone. True power comes from how strong you can stand in yourself and not allow them to trigger you and not allow them to regain any emotional connection with you. And so it's looking at how can you actually create that power within yourself. So instead of remaining emotionally tied to the person or replaying stories in the head, which reinforces the neural pathway, so there's psychological elements as well, and as well as removing yourself from being in a space that's just draining your energy that could be used in different areas and constructive ways, you can actually forgive. Right. So just to be clear, forgiving is not forgetting. It's not reconciling. It's not allowing behaviors to continue. You can forgive and not forget, right? Forgiveness isn't removing boundaries. You can forgive someone and never see them again, or never speak to them again, or never let them energetically, physically, emotionally, psychologically connect with you again. You have the right to do that. So forgiveness isn't about, oh, it's okay, and giving them a hug and then allowing them to continue doing whatever the poor behavior was. Forgiving is about cutting off and allowing you to move on. And so I talked about the energetic cord. You can do some cord cutting as well in that space. Or what I like to do is I like to bless them, because while there's some sort of until the forgiveness rather has been finalized, there's still a relationship with them, even on an energetic level. And I want to not only cut that off, but I actually want to send them really positive energy that then can create a barrier from them coming back at me. And so with the brain, you probably already know, but the brain doesn't know what's real and what's reality. The brain also doesn't know what's in the past, what's in the future. Everything it sees is something that's in the present. And so we need to cut this off in the present so it's not being consumed by the mind anymore. So I like to bless the person that I've forgiven, and I will do that until I feel like that is genuinely blessing them, right? And until I feel like I'm not just doing it as an exercise, I feel my energy genuinely going out to bless them. I wish them all the great things in the world, and that then comes back into that space of attracting great things for you. Now, I think in one of my other episodes, I did talk about, how you can. I think it was in the witchcraft episode, I talked about not wishing bad things for people. So, someone in your workplace that's really annoying, instead of wishing them to get the sack, you wish for them to get a job that has better pay, better conditions so that they decide to leave. Right. And that sets you up energetically. So that's what you want to do for someone that you're forgiving as well. You don't want to even wish them bad luck. You want to be able to wish them all the great luck in the world, but whatever they're going to do and however they're going to move forward, it's never going to be in contact with you again. And you can set that up with the intentions that you're setting up. Now, when we're doing this, doesn't mean we're letting go of the story, doesn't mean we're redefining who we are. We can still be upset that whatever happened happened. We can still be processing that and healing from that. But what we're doing is removing the power that has over us moving forward. So looking at, do I really want to carry this anymore? And am I more important and my well-being more important than continuing the story with this person? And the answer is yes. Right. So, as well as forgiving other people, we also need to forgive ourselves. Now, one of the things that in my recent healing processing that I've been going through, I've been looking at ways that I need to forgive gnomes of the past for decisions that she's made, actions that she's taken, things that she's put up with and she hasn't had a voice, the way she's been manipulated, etc., etc. And because I hold myself to quite a high standard with how I show up, when I think about some of the things that the old versions of gnomes participated in, it I don't come up with shame and guilt, but it's very easy for people to come up with shame and guilt around that. I do come up with, I must admit, a lot of disappointment. And I have thought about, look, I should have known better than that. Should have picked that up a lot earlier. Shouldn't have let that run on as much as I did. Can't believe I actually did that. My actions impacted my ability to XYZ or impacted these people that I cared for, or even people that I didn't care for. It was still impacting others in a negative way. And so we can sometimes feel like doing something bad, which is the guilt thing, or I'm bad, which is the shame thing, can make the self forgiveness difficult because we might not think we deserve it because of what's happened in the past. And that can be down to perfectionism or high standards or even fears of doing it again. Some people be like, well, if I forgive myself, then what if I do it again? I need to hold on to this so I never forget. And some people also have the belief of if I hold on to this, then I've got accountability for it. But you can still be accountable for things and hold accountability for things while forgiving yourself and releasing your ties to something you've done in the past. Because punishing yourself for things that have happened, for actions you've taken, thoughts you've had, emotions that you've experienced, situations you've allowed to continue longer than they should have, punishing yourself for that doesn't equal growth. As you can imagine, that keeps you fixed and stuck in a lower vibrational space. And so you're not able to start vibrating at a level that is conducive to healing or is conducive to change or is conducive to bringing in and attracting all those amazing things that are waiting to come to you. Now, when we look at that space, we've also got to be conscious that we very often can't fix things that have happened before. If something's happened and it's happened in the past, it's happened. We have to have some acceptance about it. And we have to acknowledge as well that living in hindsight is knowledge you didn't have at the time. So when you made the decision, did the action, had the thought or the emotion, you need to recognize that a lot of the time you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so even if you know better now, you have to give your younger self or your previous self some grace. Now, some people as well like to hold on to that just because it validates them. Because if I've been through all this pain and I hold all this pain, then that makes me a strong person and I can, that's my identity. I'm the person that's always, frustrated or always playing, the I don't want to say the victim or the sick one, but that sort of element, like I'm always the one that says bad things always happen to me. That's the identity that I've created. But just remember you made the best decision you could with the awareness you had at the time. That doesn't mean that you still should be holding on to this. You can still forgive yourself and you can still move on. You may have lost contact with people because of what you've done, and you may not regain that contact again. And even though that might be sad or that might be invoking grief, you have to have acceptance around that as well. You can't go back into the past and change things. What we're looking at is how we're moving forward. And so if you have these old versions of yourself that haven't behaved, thought, felt, acted in the way that you would have ideally liked them to, if you don't forgive yourself for that, you're going to keep yourself stuck in that old version of you because you need to let go and you need to have acceptance of who you are becoming and where you are now and what's the next step you're going to take. It's like having a backpack full of rocks holding you back or an anchor or something tied to you that as you're trying to make those steps forward, you can't because that past element is still holding you back. And, a powerful question you can even ask yourself is, am I allowing myself to evolve? Or am I holding myself hostage to the past? And as you ask that question, just sit in your body. Am I allowing myself to evolve or am I holding myself in the past? See how your body is responding to that. And then if it is, am I allowing myself to evolve and you get something within your body that indicates that you are? Great. Keep moving in that direction. If your body indicates that you are holding yourself hostage to the past and you are self-sabotaging yourself, then great. Have awareness of that. Start working on that. Start doing the therapy, start doing the things, start doing the meditation, start changing the habits. So when we are forgiving ourselves, a simple process that we can do is acknowledge the thing that we did, said, thought, acted. Ask ourselves, what can we learn from that so that we can use that in a positive way as a positive influence for us. Maybe that means that we don't put ourselves in a similar situation again. Maybe that means that we're not, we're stepping away instead of engaging in different situations. Maybe it's trying to teach you how you can internally regulate your emotional or your nervous system, right? And then what can I choose to do differently moving forward? So, this is a really good aspect of ownership without the self destruction that sometimes comes with, people that aren't healing in a conducive and effective way. Those people that are getting stuck because they're not having ownership and forward direction with what they're trying to do. And while you're going through this process, speak to your past self with compassion, be kind to yourself. If you're wanting to look to see that things are different, look at how much growth you've had since that last moment. Majority of us are continually growing. There are some people, I acknowledge, that are stuck that will never grow, but majority of us, if we look at ourselves 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 years ago, we're not showing up in the same way. We have had some growth. And so recognize that and be proud of that. And when we're looking at the mistakes we've made, don't look at them as the identity, like I'm a bad person because, or I'm this because, or whatever that identity is creating and grabbing. Reframe that and reframe the mistakes as, oh, okay, here's a data input point in my life. That mistake that I made has now given me some data that I can then build on to create better for myself and the world around me. Now, you can do things like hypnosis as well. If that's your thing, you can go to general therapists, counselors, all those sorts of things. And if you go into the hypnosis, even visualization aspects, you then have the ability of meeting your past self and releasing that emotional charge. And I think we actually did I think this last couple of episodes, if you go back and look, if you haven't already, we did some inner child healing. Right. So you can use that same visualization process, but go back to the point of when you did the thing, the thought, the action, the emotion, the behavior, when you did that, and actually then go and use that visualization to understand that more and help your past self move through to who they are today. So, forgiveness of yourself and forgiveness of others, both of them are really deeply connected. And we need to look at that though as well and think, if there's someone that we can't forgive, why can't we forgive them? Because what we can't forgive in others can sometimes be what we're judging in ourselves. So sometimes it's holding up a mirror, and that can be an awareness step that we might miss. But both of them, whether you're forgiving yourself or whether you're forgiving others, both of them require us to let go of the attachment to the situation, to the event, to the person, to the emotion that was generated at the time, to the thoughts that surround about it. It's letting go of that attachment and shifting the identity around that. But ultimately, it's just choosing peace over being right. And there was a quote that I used to say to myself a lot of times when I was coming out of that space. Do you need to be right, or do you want to do the right thing? Because them two are not often the same. And look, forgiveness is freedom, but it's only freedom if you're willing to release that version of you that sits in the pain or needs the pain or relives the pain. Because once you forgive, it removes all of that from you. And it doesn't mean that if you're forgiving someone else, that you're not, if it was something intense, bad, illegal, it doesn't mean you're not reporting him to police, doesn't mean you're not holding him accountable or taking them to court or, putting in a formal complaint at your workplace or any of those things. That isn't connected to forgiveness, right? They're just actions that form consequences. But what forgiveness is accepting that this has happened and I'm not going to allow myself to remain connected with that person or that situation anymore. I'm going to forgive them. I'm going to let them go. And then whatever the courts do, whatever the process is for the complaint process, whatever that might be, whether I cut them out of my life completely and I never have to see them again, whatever the consequences are, they sit there and they're the consequences. You don't have to be the consequences. And you don't have to suffer. You suffered once when it happened. Don't let yourself continue suffering from it. Don't let them have that power over you. So I suppose in closing, some questions you might want to ask yourself is, who am I still holding on to? What version of me needs this to be validated? And can I shift that into who do I want to become? Another question might be, what part of me is still stuck in that moment? What element still needs that? And I talk about in the previous episode, I was talking about trauma, and sometimes trauma can be something that comes up that has a little less control. We have a little less control over that, but doesn't mean we still can't forgive the situation or the person. It just means that maybe we're still stuck a little bit. And how can we release that? What steps can we take? And then you can actually ask, what would it feel like if I finally put that down? And even as I said that and I exhaled, I felt my shoulders drop. You feel a weight releasing from you. You feel lighter because it's not dragging you down and keeping you heavy. So maybe over the next week, just have a little bit of a think and think, what am I still holding on to? And what part of me stuck in that moment? And what's it gonna finally feel like when I put that down? And then shift in to your forgiveness technique. Anyway, thank you for joining me on this episode, and I look forward to serving you again in our next episode.